love the full moon? It's so nice. It's so beautiful. You have light all night long, sort of like the daytime has been extended into the night. You have at sunset the sun and the moon facing each other, the light of the sun reflected off of the moon and then coming to us all night long. A couple of werewolves once in a while, but other than that, really the full moon is a very, very nice time. In December in the northern hemisphere, the moon is so high in the sky that you can actually read by it. It's a real cool experience to be out there on like the night of the full moon and just see how illuminated everything is. It's really amazing, that silvery light all over the place. It's really great, except for the May full moon, which is coming up this week. The May full moon, it's usually May, sometimes it happens in late April. The May full moon is in the sign of Scorpio. And this year, 2012, it'll be landing on Friday night, May 5th, late Friday night. The full moon in Scorpio is sort of a difficult full moon. Now, see, full moon is a little difficult anyway, because the moon is sort of the emotional side of things, and that full illumination is not exactly what the moon is looking for. The moon tends to have a more private sort of attitude. You know how it is. You don't necessarily want your emotions to be out there, the first thing that you're sharing and showing. Unlike the sun ready to say, hey, here I am, this is what's what. The moon is a little bit more keep it inside. You know, you tell people your solar stuff when you meet them. You sort of keep the lunar stuff to yourself for a bit. Well, okay, now, the full moon is a little bit of an issue. Usually full moons bring things to light. We get a little bit emotional. The emotions start coming out. I don't really think that that's a bad thing, but we have a little bit of difficulty with it. So, you know, leave aside its ultimate value, we feel a little uncomfortable sometimes with all these emotions coming out. And sometimes if we haven't been sharing our emotions on a regular basis, when the full moon comes around, we just kind of pop them all out there, and you get a little bit more of an effect than you might have been hoping for. That's a full moon thing. That's why that's the lunatic thing. And that's any full moon. Things come to light, the emotions start coming up, this is how I've really been feeling all along, and so on. Okay, that's any full moon. But it can be a lot of fun, too. Now, Scorpio. Now, the moon in Scorpio, well, you know, I'm not so much on the whole traditional astrology thing, but the moon in Scorpio may be a little bit difficult. Scorpio is a sign that digs. Scorpio is a sign that likes to bring things up that have been hidden, likes to go in there and find out what's hidden. And again, the moon is as it relates to emotions, not necessarily so comfortable with that opening up, digging down, and seeing what we can find in there type of thing. So, full moon in Scorpio is kind of like double jeopardy for the moon. In Scorpio, in full light. So the full moon in Scorpio tends to be a very intense time emotionally. Things come up that have been buried, things that we wanted to kind of keep down, things that we didn't want to share with others wind up coming up. Actually, Scorpio is a sign that is associated with that sort of deep purging. It rules the bowels, for example, and of course the moon is the stomach. The full moon in Scorpio is a little bit of vomiting out of the emotions. It's a little bit of throwing up what we've been feeling, what we've been trying to keep down. You know how it is with the whole vomit thing. You sort of want to keep it down, and then all of a sudden, bleh, there it goes. That's the full moon in Scorpio. And it's illuminated. It's out there. We show it to other people. You know, you don't really want other people watching you vomit. And that's kind of what can happen on the full moon in Scorpio. And it can make us pretty uncomfortable. Of course, now to the extent that we've been holding things in, to the extent that we've been repressing, we have all that much more to throw up when the full moon in Scorpio comes around. To the extent that we've been kind of opening and sharing and letting things go and kind of managing things on an emotional level all along, we have a little bit less of a problem. Now, this year, the full moon in Scorpio is just about 8 weeks away from the first Uranus-Pluto square. So the personal emotional intensity is certainly mirrored by a great collective emotional intensity. And as we get towards Friday of this week, the first week in May, we're very likely to see that the emotional side of politics, the emotional side of social situations really comes to a head and really starts boiling over. I can imagine that that'll happen in terms of politics. I think that the euro will probably be a big topic. Certainly the U.S. presidential election and all the issues that has just been sort of simmering around for a while, and we've kind of been over the last month or so dealing with them on a subclinical level, are going to kind of come bursting forward a little bit on this week. Now, that's also true because we have an eclipse coming up on May 20th. About 2 weeks before an eclipse, what happens is we start to get into eclipse mode. Eclipses also, this will be a solar eclipse on May 20th, and eclipses also kind of intensify the energy. An eclipse is, solar eclipse is usually a sort of powerful concentration of energy, sort of like the time before a thunderstorm. But we'll talk about that in another video. The thing is that an eclipse is a powerful event, and as a result, a couple of weeks before, usually from the lunation before, which would be the Scorpio full moon, we sort of feel the power of the eclipse. And it actually continues for another couple of weeks afterwards. The result of that is that this Scorpio full moon is extra intense because it's in the shadow of both the eclipse and the Uranus-Pluto square. On a personal level, certainly emotional issues are going to come to the fore for many of us. The problem is not that the emotions are coming out. That's ultimately a good thing. The problem is that a Scorpio-Pluto type of feel to the emotions often brings up all the old stuff along with it. So somebody's been getting under your skin for the last few weeks at work or something like that, and you want to express your unhappiness about that. The problem is that that coworker that's been bothering you at work is triggering everything going back to that classmate in third grade who really, really annoyed you, and all of the emotional stuff that could possibly be constellated with this is going to come up at the same time. So the whole trick is to let things come out and deal with things emotionally and deal with things interpersonally without necessarily going nuclear on people, without necessarily bringing up everything that could possibly come up, without necessarily taking all of your stored issues and bringing them out into this particular moment. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but you can do it. You can give it a shot at any rate. As we get past the Scorpio full moon into the sign of Sagittarius and then into Capricorn in the days following the full moon, it should more or less be possible to kind of repair some of the damage that has been done by overactive expressions of emotions. But it would be better, of course, not to do that in the first place. Full moons are usually pretty fun. Generally speaking, it is the fun time of the month because people are out there and there is that sort of lack of inhibition, which, could be a little bit of a problem, but it can also be a lot of fun. Scorpio full moon, even though it falls on a Friday night, I don't know if it's going to be all that much fun, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to get through Friday and see what happens.